Yo, what's good with it? It's the homie Mac, music, art, culture, knowledge. Like, share, comment, subscribe. If you have yet to, subscribe to the YouTube channel 82 Kings. Like this video, comment, share, spread the word. Mac TV, music, art, culture, knowledge. Again, peace and love to all. Yeah, let's get to it. Essentially, I want to talk about, today is what? January 20th, MLK Day. And my thing is, I feel like the name of this Mac Minute session is going to be called The Falsification of Martin Luther King. And I feel like a lot of people, in essence, have misrepresented his legacy. I feel like a lot of white nationalists or white supremacists, they've used him in his message of nonviolence in the context of essentially justifying violence against black bodies and why they shouldn't, why black people should not respond accordingly, meet force with force, meet aggression with aggression, and essentially, I feel like his nonviolent message has been misappropriated, and I feel like a lot of white supremacists, again, they've used his message of nonviolence, not only his message of nonviolence, but just his message in general, as an accessory to justify white supremacy, as an accessory to justify violence against black people. I think it's been manipulated. We can go back and forth all day. Some people may not agree. But yeah, I think everything about, pretty much most things about Dr. King's legacy have been misappropriated. There's been a lot of revisionist history. I think that it's unfair to contextualize him as a weak person. I think if you really pay attention to his transition, his growth over the years, and his political maturity, a lot of his perspectives changed. What was it when he did the march on when he made the speech, on the March on Washington? Essentially, a lot of people felt as though, well, it was a farce. It was a joke. Some people felt as though like they were just using him and his voice as like a pawn, and the people that were the people who were doing this, because it was happening, they basically used Dr. King as a pawn in the game of a revolutionary struggle for black people, and by that, essentially, I'm saying there were a lot of white liberals who wanted to use his face because he was generating a lot of income, but there was a beef between I don't want to say beef. There was a misunderstanding between Roy Wilkins and a couple other people from his camp who felt like pretty much the NAACP was paying the bills and funding all the movement, and essentially they weren't getting the people that were on the side of the NAACP weren't necessarily getting their just due financially. So there's a whole stir behind that. If you look at Malcolm X, he made I think he made the speech in Detroit. Don't fact check me, but he made a speech and essentially said, he called it the farce on Washington. And in a nutshell, yeah, he felt like all this was a pawn game. Like essentially that white liberals were using black revolutionary struggle for just getting basic fundamental human rights and being acknowledged as a person. They were using that as a pawn game to further their cause. And if you really look behind the veil, you'll see that a lot of people that were funding these marches, these sit-ins, were white liberals who did not necessarily have black people's best interests in mind, but wanted to essentially use the black revolutionary struggle as like a Trojan horse. And then they could slide in after that, and whatever they wanted, essentially they could use it. But yeah, one thing I want to say about Dr. King, if you really pay attention to his literature, you pay attention to what else? If you pay attention to some of his later interviews and his later videos, you can see that he was anti-imperialism and he was anti-capitalism. Matter of fact, I want to share a quote with you. He said that, one second, Dr. King is quoted as saying, "We all too often have socialism for the rich and rugged free market capitalism for the poor." Essentially, he's saying how like the way the infrastructure of capitalism is set up, the rich get richer, the rich get more kickbacks, and there's more of a safety blanket, a safety net for them to fall and recover. And essentially, it's at no cost for them. This society is built on the backs of the indigent, the impoverished, those that are disenfranchised economically, politically even. And I would agree with that. When you look at it and you realize that the wealth in this country is it's not evenly distributed. It's not what I want to say. What 1%? Yeah, about 1% of the people in this country control the majority of the wealth. There's over 40 million impoverished people. Probably more than that now. Over 40 million people living in poverty. And like, why is that? And I know there was an interview where Dr. King essentially was saying, like, look, you can't come here. There's this whole sentiment expressed in this country saying that, you know, people need to pull themselves by the bootstraps. Black people, poor people alike. And the bottom line is, no, that's not how it works. If you looked at what he brought up, the fact that a lot of white immigrants, when they came to this country, they received grants. They received land grants. They received training on how to till the land and how to work the land and how to sustain it. And my thing is, that came from government intervention. Not this whole mythical fantasy of just, if you work hard, if you go to college, if you get a trade, and you know, you just go to church and be a good citizen, everything will be fine. That is not a social reality. And I want to give another quote. This is something that Dr. King said at his speech at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Atlanta on August 16th of 1967. And one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million people poor in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you are raising questions about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying that more and more, we've got to begin to ask questions about the whole society. So yeah, the number I gave you was from the 60s, so it's probably well over 40 million people living in indigency, living in poverty as of now. And my thing is, when we talk about wealth, again, we're talking about assets. We're not talking about a Louis bag. We're not talking about having a Lamborghini. We're talking about having land, having property, having real estate, having things that appreciate in value, having things that essentially that you can hand down. And from that wealth generates more wealth and generates more economic advantages. And like we said, there's a minority within this world, specifically in this country, that controls the majority of the wealth. So my thing is, you got a few people on top of the hill, and then you got the rest as a bottom cast. Essentially, as of 2020, there really isn't much of a middle class, if any at all. There's not. And I think as far as the ADOS movement, American Descendants of Slavery, that movement essentially echoes the sentiment of Dr. King, that specifically black Americans are owed reparations and that government intervention needs to right the wrongs of the sins of this country. Because we know what, in 1863 or 1865, you had the Freedmen's Bureau that came into act when the blacks, when we were newly freed and emancipated. There were land grants. There were things that were 40 acres and a mule. You had things scaled out for us so that we could become ingratiated in society and become socially mobile. Once Lincoln was assassinated, Vice President Johnson basically said, I'm going to stop all that. All this land is going to be redistributed to the slave owners, which helped them not only sustain their wealth, but maintain their power. And that wealth and that power was generated off of slave labor. So we know this. And I think that, again, this whole concept of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps is a myth. It has been debunked time and time again. Wealth begets wealth. Yeah, true indeed, you may have a couple of people that are able to pull themselves out of poverty, but the majority, it doesn't work like that. Wholesale, it does not work like that. Wealth begets wealth. Wealth is power. You vote with your dollars. Everything is an economic game. America is not a meritocracy. It does not function off of merit. It functions off of resources. It functions off of who's advocating for you, and above all, it functions off of economics. I believe there was a man from the Rothschilds family. He was saying that essentially, if you give me control of a nation's money, I care not who makes the laws, and that's real. Because everything yields to economics. Economics is the lifeblood of a society. Economics essentially dictate who wins and who loses. And politics is an extension of that. And I want to say Yvette Carnell, shout out to Yvette, shout out to Tone. She said something to the effect that the government determines who wins and who loses. There's a lot of truth in that. Because the fact of the matter is, there needs to be government undergirding to sustain life, to sustain, to bring about a middle class, to bring about a society that is truly just and fair. It's almost like imagine, you're a parent and you got 3 kids and they're all in the kitchen eating, and one of the kids is older and stronger. The one that's the weakest and the youngest, he can't get to the food. He's trying to get to the food, but he can't because his brother and his sister are bigger and stronger. You think that a parent is just going to sit back and let their child starve and let the other 2 eat? No. So likewise, government needs to intervene, metaphorically speaking, and let the youngest child eat. That's the whole premise of it. If we're going to say that we live in a just country, this country that's supposedly built on Christian values, then there shouldn't be such a wide wealth gap, such a wide disparity in who basically is able to live a comfortable life, and I'm not saying that, if you're making money is evil. I don't think money is evil, no, but I think we have to really recalibrate and think things through when there's such a wide wealth gap. And let's not even get into the racial wealth gap. That's a whole nother galaxy. But yeah, I'm not. This is not meant to. In me saying all this. This is more or less with the intent of shedding light on Martin Luther King's politics, on again how his political maturity shifted. I believe that his influence is very far-reaching. He was one of the main reasons why I wanted to become an alpha. He's one of the main reasons that I wanted to understand the political process, and he resonates through history, through time. And I think it's unfortunate. It's weird because we all know that the government, well, specifically the FBI, had a lot to do with his homicide, his assassination. That's documented. You can look it up. They had wiretaps on Dr. King. They filed them everywhere. And it's just really, I don't know, it almost kind of seemed like like they're making a mockery I think the FBI put out a tweet today saying, Happy MLK Day, and then they gave one of his quotes. I can't remember the exact quote, but it kind of felt like it was like a middle finger, like you guys essentially tortured this man, followed him everywhere, sent people at him, sent government agents at him, did different things to stymie his cause, and then to be like, oh yeah, well, great American hero. Hope you like the monument we built for him. And it's like, there's a lot of hypocrisy in that. But yeah, my politics is really justice for all. I don't want to, and when I say justice for all, I mean equity. Everybody having the opportunity to truly grow, sustain wealth, to be able to be a winner, to win. Now I understand everybody's not going to win, but I think everybody should have the opportunity to win. And I think when we deal with institutional racism, when we deal with a lot of things systemically that are embedded in this society, it keeps certain people at the bottom caste. And my thing is, if you look at this isn't even necessarily there are racial undertones of this, but there are a lot of white people that are living in poverty. I would say this is a majority white country. Most of the people living in poverty are white. And my thing is, a lot of them are so stuck on racism, a lot of the impoverished white people, they take pride in just simply being white. But what they don't understand is a lot of times when they go to the ballot and vote, they're voting against their own interests. And I want to say it was LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who said that the the poorest white man is still going to think he's above the wealthiest black man, just simply off of his skin color. You know, and my thing is, I think everything has a racial dynamic, but until we really truly try to follow the high ideals in the Constitution, the high ideals that we claim we stand on as a country, there's going to always be issues with race, and there's going to always be issues with class. It's your boy Mac, Music, Art, Culture, Knowledge. Follow the movement on Instagram, MacTV_82. Follow me on YouTube, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, 82 Kings. It's your boy Mac. Peace and love. I'm out.